of Japanese aircraft to become one of the Navy's first aces. When his aircraft carrier, USS Lexington, was sunk during the Battle of the Coral Sea on May 8, 1942, he abandoned ship as ordered by the captain. After some time, he grabbed a rope and hauled himself up out of the water and back to the flight deck of the listing ship. When queried by his puzzled squadron mates, he answered, "I didn't know any of the guys down there and got kind of lonely. When are you coming down?" Gaylor had an exceptional career. As he rose in rank, eventually becoming an admiral, 4 stars, he held numerous commands of increasing size and importance. In due course, he served as the head of the National Security Agency under President Nixon, and later commanded all U.S. forces in the Pacific. Following his military career, he became a staunch and respected advocate of nuclear disarmament. He passed away in 2011. Chapter 1. It had been raining hard for 2 days, and the water rushing out of Lake Okeechobee had risen so much that it covered the railroad tracks. And though the clack of steel wheels on steel rails told me otherwise, it seemed as if we were skimming free of the tracks across the surface of the still rising water. Only an hour earlier, my mother, my brother, and I waved goodbye through the rain to my father. Alone and wet among a crowd of strangers, he waved back from where he stood under the eaves of the station platform. It was September 17th, 1926, and I was 5 years old. Only a year earlier, my father brought us, my mother, younger brother, and me, to Moore Florida, on the southern shore of Lake Okeechobee. A series of boll weevil-ravaged cotton harvests drove us from the family plantation in northeast Georgia, a region that had been home to the McWhorter clan since they arrived from Scotland in the late 1700s. Consequently, the move to Florida was not made lightly. But my father had to make a living, and South Florida in the mid-1920s seemed to be a place where one might be made. There was a land boom underway, and rampant speculation had created a booming economy. My father went to work for a dredging company that clawed canals out of the mucky landscape in order to drain parts of the Everglades for farming. I remember going out to visit him one day and becoming fascinated by the huge suction dredges that floated in the canal. They made a tremendous roaring noise as they sucked up the black muck and pumped it onto the edge of the canal. While I was there, the big intake pipe on one of the dredges became clogged, and my father had to dive beneath the horrid glop to clear it. But now, a great hurricane, in concert with economic realities that would lead ultimately to the Great Depression, was delivering a wake-up call to the developers and businessmen, and those of us who hoped to ride their coattails to riches, or at least to a decent living. The hurricane struck South Florida with a force and fury that was nearly beyond belief. In Moore Haven, it pushed the lake over the levees and through the town in the form of a 26-foot storm surge. Most of the houses, ours included, were swept off their cinder block foundations like so many matchboxes. What was left of our house was found more than a mile from where it had stood. Nothing but sludge and water and rotting ruins were left of the devastated town. Categorized by modern standards as a Category 4 hurricane, the storm was one of the worst to hit the United States during the 20th century. All told, the hurricane destroyed millions of dollars of property, including the city of Miami. Worse, more than 400 people were killed. After salvaging what little he could from the ruins of our house, some silverware and a shotgun, my father joined us in Hillsboro, Georgia, the home of my maternal grandparents. He had weathered the storm in the 3rd story of a brick office building with a group of other men. His stories of the devastation left behind, the wreckage and death, were incredible. We lived in Hillsboro for a year, and I started school there. Although I was only 5, I got into the 1st grade because my grandfather was head of the school board. It was a one-room schoolhouse, and each row in the room was a different grade. We left Hillsboro in 1927 and moved in with my grandfather McWhorter in Athens, Georgia, where he owned a huge 4-story Victorian mansion situated on a 160-acre estate. It had been a country club when he bought it in 1901, and he remodeled the house almost immediately. It was a wonderful old building that my brother and I regularly explored.